So, hello everyone. Welcome to the SoLeadSaturday episode 5. Our today's guest is very special. He's not only a keynote speaker, he's not only an author, he's not only a founder, he's not only a faculty member of blockchain, he's not only a strategy advisor for the organizations. He's one in all. He's everywhere. So, welcome, Dr. Mark. I'm very overwhelmed to have you on my SoLeadSaturday podcast, and thank you so much for you providing your time and consideration.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your show and to share my insights and my background with you and your audience and to help them wherever I can.
Yeah, thank you so much, and it's all my pleasure actually. So to start with, as I mentioned, I am also very impressed as you are everywhere. So I would like to ask, how did you manage to be pursue your passions or the interest in all the areas and alongside build the career?
Sure. So as you've mentioned, I've done and I'm doing quite a few different things. So I'm the founder of Datafloq, which is a content platform. We're working on a new platform called Maven, which will be a social content network. I am a keynote speaker and author. So I'm doing quite a few different things. And basically the reason how I managed to combine all three is because they all are linked to each other and they all have to do with emerging technologies such as big data, blockchain, and AI. And the lessons what I learned from my PhD, I can use in my keynote and in my writing, and what I learned from that I can use in my startups. So they all combined, and that's how I basically manage to do what I do. And above all, I really enjoy what I do, so that makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, that's impressive actually. So first thing is managing a time. Do you ever find it difficult to manage the time to be on the different parts? Like, even though these fields are interlinked, you are in the speaker, like this is the different skill set to have, or maybe you are a founder, which is like an innovative mind or working on your own things, products. And then when you are talking about the faculty member, it's completely a educational aspect of it. And when you talk about the strategy advisor, it is completely on the basis of the business. Like, it might be related to your an entrepreneurship, but it is like different skill sets actually if one person has to pursue. So how do you manage that?
How do I manage that? As I said, I think my main reason is that I really enjoy what I do. So I work a lot, which is for me is fine because whenever I'm working with any of these things, I really enjoy it, and that makes life a lot easier already. If I have have to give keynotes all around the world, I can use my time in the plane, for example, to work on whatever I'm doing, which I actually really enjoy because it gives you a time to be isolated from the internet and actually do something. So it's just a matter of being disciplined and really have a perseverance of what you want to do. And I think if you have that and you have a positive mindset, you can achieve anything that you want. But it's hard work, but I really enjoy it.
That's great actually. So that is something that's all about the interest actually. If person has the interest, he anyhow finds the time. So
Yeah.
that is the takeaway from it. So so next question is along the same lines, like when did you realize your passions or the interest, and what steps did you take to the way you pursued it right now in the career? So what would be the major important steps actually one has to take?
I think that's different for everyone. For me, it came when I went on a big adventure almost 9 years ago, and during that adventure, I noticed I didn't want to work for a boss anymore. I wanted to be my own boss. So when I finished the adventure, I decided to start my own company. And along the way, you sort of learn what you like and how you want to proceed with that. That's how I sort of enjoyed. I found out what my passion was, which is basically building a company, trying to inspire people, and sharing my knowledge. With the work that I do, I'm able to do all three of those. So I think it's a matter of time, and you need to try different things to find out what your passion is. And it's not always an easy path to find your passion, but I'm very fortunate to have found mine.
Yeah, so I definitely can relate. It is more about the experiments and what you enjoy doing. So finding out what is the most suitable for you. So thank you so much for that. The next question is along the same line, one of your passion actually, which is you do the keynote speaking. So you mentioned that you travel more than 25 countries. So would you like to share any of your like a memorable incident or the experience, or it might be funny incidents as well when you start actually the keynote speaking? Would you like to share any of such incident?
Yeah, sure. So when I started with my keynotes, it's about 8 years ago now, and at that time I had really only just started in the field of big data, and within a few months I was already invited to share my knowledge at a conference in the Netherlands, and I was like, wow, that's a bit crazy. I've only started and I'm already being asked as an expert. But that's when I also realized that I was working on something very, very interesting, and that a lot of organizations had no idea about how to deal with big data. So that was for me sort of an eye opener that you can be an expert by diving into the material quite quickly. Of course, you need to be honest and really have an understanding of what you're talking about. But for me, it was quite interesting to see that quite quickly I was being recognized as being able to help people and organizations with big data. And from there on, I continued. I wrote my books. I did my PhD. Help organizations, and all that information I can now share with organizations from around the world to help them understand how to deal with emerging technologies, not only big data, but also blockchain and AI. And that brought me to some great parts of the world, and meeting some very, very inspiring and interesting people.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, that I something relate as well. So when you say about it, like, you explained about like a PhD also a major factor, whatever you are doing right now. So any kind of advice that you want to do to give to the students, like, who are pursuing their career, what is the important thing actually when you are taking the academic education? Along with the academic education, how much active you need to be on the social front and or the networking, how that helps them to build their career actually?
Sure. So I did my PhD about 7 years after I finished my master's degree, which was really good for me because I gained quite a bit of working experience as well, and learn and working with organizations from different fields. And for me, that really helped me in doing my PhD because you're not fresh out of uni, but you gain some work experience beforehand before you start doing your PhD. Um, Doing a PhD for me was a brilliant experience. Having the opportunity to spend 3 years. I completed mine in 3 years. To have an opportunity to spend 3 years on a certain topic, take a deep dive, and really learn really learn the entire field that your PhD is in. I thought that was a fantastic intellectual challenge, and I can only recommend it to everyone trying to do it.
Yeah, so investing time on the education is the major factor that
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. So that is a great advice to have any student to have actually. uh, Moving to the next question, it is about the blockchain. uh, Again, one of your passion. So is blockchain private, public, or hybrid? It might be a basic
Oh.
for you, but I don't know.
Well, of course, you have different types of blockchains. You have a public blockchain, you have a private blockchain, you have a hybrid blockchain, and the different types of blockchains can be useful for different applications. If you want, to replace a monetary system such as Bitcoin, then you definitely need to have a public blockchain. If you want a system to improve settlements between banks, you definitely want to have a private blockchain. So there, it really depends where you're going to use the blockchain for. Private blockchains are for enterprise solutions. Public blockchains are for public solutions. And I think that's one is not better than the other. They're just different applications. And in the end, a blockchain is nothing less than a database. And instead of having a read, write, edit, it's only read, write. We everyone is super excited about blockchain, and so am I, because I think blockchain has the opportunity to fundamentally change our society. But in the end, it's just a database.
Yeah. So any particular Bitcoin use cases or a couple of Bitcoin use cases you would like to explain or just mention here?
Well, I think from a blockchain perspective, not from a Bitcoin perspective, from a blockchain perspective, I think one of the really interesting examples is the use cases for supply chains, where you can really have determine the provenance of a product or a service or even data. And so you can really follow a product, let's say coffee beans from the coffee farm all the way to a cafe somewhere around the world. So you can see exactly how the beans were, the coffee beans were transported through the supply chain. And you can perfectly see who was involved, etc. I think if you look at supply chains, it's quite remarkable that we have been able to develop these global, very, very complicated supply chains, and that they work. But with blockchain, we can make them more effective, more efficient, etc. So I think that's a really, really interesting example. The other example is very much focused on tokenization. Tokenization will really change society as well. If you look at, we have three different types of tokens. We have currency tokens, Bitcoin being one of them. We have utility tokens, where the token is meant as to purchase something within a certain platform, for example, Ether. And you have security tokens, which have the objective to increase in value over time. And if you look at tokenization, for example, from a fractional ownership perspective, that instead of if you have a building, instead of it being owned by 2 or 3 investors, and if they want to sell the building, it can take half a year before their, let's say, $100 million building has been sold. But if you tokenize that and you have fractional ownership, they can sell their building on the secondary market instantly. So that means that all of a sudden we have an influx of illiquid assets that become liquid, and that will really have an effect on the world economy. Because trillions of dollars, which are currently illiquid, will become liquid when we start to tokenize companies, buildings, assets, etc. And I think that's a fascinating development. We're still early days, but it's a fascinating development.
So what is the future of blockchain like?
What's the future of blockchain like? I think the future of blockchain is when we no longer talk about blockchain. When it's just there. We go to Amazon and nobody knows how Amazon really works, but we use Amazon all every day. Same for all the other big platforms. The moment we start talking about blockchain, but we have a decentralized internet or decentralized society, we no longer talk about blockchain. I think that's the future.
Okay. No, but because people talk a lot more about actually AI and the data analytics stuff, right? So that way, the same way, blockchain is also one of the areas, blockchain and cryptocurrency. You always hear those words nowadays. So,
the big buzzwords, at the moment.
The big words right now, like a boom.
Yeah.
So another question is around your keynote speaking, actually. We already actually, I guess we discussed this, but this is about how did you start your first keynote speaking? And you already mentioned it actually. And what steps did you take to make that? So maybe that question. Next question is, like lots of organization now for the big data or the data analytics areas, they are moving to the cloud solutions. So what would be the typical cloud solution organization should adapt? What kind of it would be?
Well, there's no one approach to say here, but let me give you explain the model that I have in my latest book, the Organization of Tomorrow. In it, I came up with a model which I call the D square plus A square model, which basically helps organizations to digitally transform their business and to become a data organization. So it basically means you need to datafy your processes and your customer touch points. So you need to collect data, you need to change analog processes into digital processes. And you can, for example, use the Internet of Things for that, to use sensors to, for example, digitize your workplace. Then you need to distribute your data. You need to distribute your data either through a cloud solution, whether that's AWS or Microsoft or Google or Alibaba's cloud solution, doesn't really matter, but you need to use a cloud solution for that. And you do that especially if it's an internal approach, you have a centralized solution. If you want to collaborate with industry partners, you can use a blockchain solution, and then you distribute your data through a blockchain technology. Once you have distributed your data, you can then start to analyze your data. So you use descriptive, predictive, prescriptive analytics to understand the different patterns within the data, and you can gain insights from that to improve your decision making, for example. And the final step is to automate your business, to automate your processes and your customer touch points with, for example, artificial intelligence or using smart contracts on the blockchain. And that will then really help you to digitally transform your business. And so the D square plus A square model of just datafying your data, distributing your data, analyzing your data, and automating your processes really helps you to understand whether it's a small, very tiny process within your organization or eventually your entire organization to digitally transform your business and to become a data organization.
Yeah, that's helpful actually. Moving to the next question, which is again, I guess, along the these cloud solutions and then data. So, what steps do individual or the organization or any other social media platforms need to take towards the data security? Actually, this is going to be one of the big things when we are talking about the data, because it is all everywhere. Like,
yeah, data security is a major issue, and unfortunately, for many organizations, it's still not a priority, and which to me is absolutely, I don't understand why not. If you are a data organization and if data is one of your main assets, you want to make sure that your data can't be stolen, you can't be hacked, and if you are hacked, that at least the data is encrypted, and that hackers can't do anything with the data. So I've always said that any organization can and will be hacked, and if you haven't been, then you're simply not important enough. So you really need to make sure that your data privacy, but your data security usage is top notch, and that you use the latest technology to do so, because we've seen too many data breaches in the past years, and we will continue to see very many data breaches in the future, and it can significantly harm your business. You can go bankrupt if you don't take this serious. So organizations really have to pay attention to this.
Yeah, I also sometimes feel like the content I am generating, actually I always feel like how am I gonna secure it, apart from copywriting it, how much I can control on that data part actually. So that is like from individual level to the big population, actually it is the major concern, I feel.
Absolutely. And then everything becomes data driven, and if as I said, if you are a data organization and your main assets data is being stolen or being leaked, then you have a serious problem.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so that is the big area, I guess, to grow, because alongside when we talk a lot more about the data fields, actually it is going to create the another business pipeline, which is going to be a data security.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So moving to the next question, it is like along the same line actually. What are the real challenges when organizations move to the big data solutions or the cloud solutions? What are the real challenges?
Well, that's a good question. I think there are basically three challenges that organizations face. One is skills. So they need to up their skills level within the organization. So they need to hire the right data scientists or data engineers, and they can either use a consultancy firm for that, or they train their own staff or hire new staff. But they need to up their skills if they want to be able to compete in and become a data-driven business. The second one is technology. They need to have technology in place, and technology is basically the easy part. We're still a long way to go, especially, for example, if you look at blockchain or AI, but it's relatively easy. The third and main challenge is culture. You need, as an organization, you need to change your culture to a data-driven culture. And a simple example is that If everyone in the organization has access to insights, then that will result in empowerment of your employees. It means that the decision-making capabilities will no longer be solely with your senior management, but basically should be with everyone who faces the customer and who can improve, who can work or improving a product or service. And that's one thing. But on the other hand, if you used to have like a reporting or monitoring of once a month, now all of a sudden you have real-time reporting. That also requires real-time action. Changing your company culture is the hardest part because people always find it difficult to change. Your skills, technology, and culture are the three main challenges I would say for organizations that want to digitally transform their business.
Yeah, so we can just say that it all starts and ends with the people, how much they want.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah. Next question is about it's for the students actually. Any recommendation of courses that you would like to advise students to learn actually in these particular areas? Like any particular courses you would recommend, or any books for the guidance or something?
Well, you can always, of course, start with my books. That's a good
Yeah, that's
starting
great.
point.
Great one. Yeah.
But I would recommend. I don't have any particular courses in mind, but there are. It really depends on what students want to learn, which field they want to be, and there are of course hundreds and hundreds of different courses that are available online. So what matters is that you really look into the courses that suit your interest, so that if you start with it, that you actually enjoy doing it. Because if you don't enjoy doing a course, you will not complete it. So you really need to have this intrinsic motivation to do a certain course. Otherwise, it will become quite difficult to complete a course. So which course that means for any particular student, that's very difficult to recommend because every student has, of course, a different situation. But the main important thing is that if you select a course, make sure you enjoy it.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that's a good advice actually. If you choose it, and whenever you decide something to do, actually complete it. That is
Yeah.
also good. The next question is about we already covered it actually about your PhD in management. How did you decide that you want to do the PhD in management? Is it just because come along with your entrepreneurship thing, or it is a part of how you build your career and start growing towards it?
Well, it happened sort of by accident because I sort of wanted to do a PhD, but never really paid attention to it. And then I spoke to my now former supervisor, and we had a very nice chat. And I suggested, well, I might as well give it a shot and apply for a position as a PhD candidate. And then the University of Technology in Sydney provided me with 2 scholarships to do so, and that was like a fantastic opportunity to do my PhD. That was at the business school of UTS and in the Faculty of Management. So that's how I ended up doing a PhD in management. But I really took a technology approach. So I looked at how big data, blockchain, and AI are changing organizations from a strategic and management perspective. So yes, it's a PhD in management, but very much with a technology focused.
Yeah, that makes sense actually. You, work with lots of technologies actually at the same time. Next question is about what's the difference between statistical AI and classical AI?
What's the difference between the?
Technical question.
Uh, that's a technical question, and I approach the technologies really from a strategic perspective. So what does AI mean for an organization? What does machine learning? How can you use machine learning within your organization? I am not a technical person. I can't develop AI. I can't develop statistical models, but I can look at how these technologies change organizations. And I think that's also for what's most interesting for organizations is yes, you have the technical part, but in the end, you need to be able to put it to work towards your business. So you need to know how you can use AI in your organization and how does AI change your organization to make it useful.
Oh, okay. The next question is like, as we always deal with, helping the organization in emerging technologies. So, how do you describe blockchain or the AI, these terms, to the non-technical person, like when you're dealing with the people who are not much aware of the technology and you have to explain them what would be the
Yeah.
best?
So the way I always explain it is from a blockchain perspective, which I mentioned earlier. It's basically just a database technology, and but it's a database that instead of being read, write, edit, which is normally the case, it's a database which is read and write. As a consequence, anyone can, and this database is then shared between multiple people, or hundreds or thousands or millions of people, and anyone can add to the database, and then you use a consensus mechanism to make sure that the data that is being added in the correct way. And all of a sudden, everyone has a single source of the truth, because everyone can see in the database and see what the data is, and that makes data immutable, verifiable, and traceable.
Mhm.
So that's really if you look at it from a blockchain perspective.
Oh,
What about AI? You can see basically there are three different fields of AI. So you have the cognitive systems, which really deal with the interaction between uh, 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 yeah, machines and humans. For example, chatbots, where we interact with the chatbots, and that's very much focused on the cognitive systems. And we have the robotic systems, which are like an exoskeleton, which helps factory workers to interact and to lift heavier stuff. That of course uses a lot of artificial intelligence as well. And then you have the information world, where you use machine learning to have an understanding of the data at hand, and to learn from that. And to me, artificial intelligence is the seamless integration of the cognitive, the robotics, and the information world, where we use machines to automate and to basically replicate intelligent behavior.
oh, okay, that's great. Moving to the next question, it is more about, along these technological skills, actually, what other skills do you think are the prior important in the future when we consider about all these technical terms, and plus you need these skills, like, mandate, like these are going to be top priority skills.
I think that the main skill that we would need is the skill to be able to analyze
Mm.
a certain process, or a certain project, or a certain issue. Analytical behavior, to understand how a process works, how it integrates with the different technologies.
Mhm.
I think that's a very important skill, that we are able to dissect a problem, and look at the problem from different angles, and see what the best way solution is, what the best technology is, how to solve that issue. So I think the analytical problem-solving skills is what we should teach students, because that's, I think, is something that will be always very, very important in any job.
Yeah, that's true. Actually understanding your problem statement, and then after proceeding further, what would be the next steps.
Yeah,
So yeah, that I also can definitely relate to. Otherwise, you will just waste your time
yeah.
doing. So the next question is more or like why this podcast stands for as well. Like, how do you describe your leadership style? Like, if one has to take the leaderships in their areas of interest or the passions they have, um, what they have to do to take the leaderships, and then how do you describe your own leadership style?
I think the lead by example is the best approach, and that's also my approach. How I try to lead in whatever I do is that yeah, if you want to achieve something, and you stand for something, and you expect that from the people that report to you, you need to give the good example, and you need to do the right thing first and foremost. So I think really. Lead by example, and is I think very powerful. And that's what I use in whatever I do, and that works for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great leadership style, actually, that always set an example for the others so that others can follow and admire for.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's a great leadership style. And then to end up this podcast, actually, the last question that I would like to ask is like, what is the advice actually you would like to give to the professionals who are doing their job or pursuing their career, and looking for a job shift, or they are wanted to grow in that particular area, and or the students or the aspiring entrepreneurs, because you are everywhere. So what kind of advice you would like to give in general to the people?
Yeah, well, I think my advice would be to always learn, always be open for new things, always be open to experience new things, and to like to have a approach like lifelong learning. I started my PhD when I was 33, 32, I think, and it was a great experience, and I'll probably do another learning educational experience in the next years, because it's good to keep yourself up to date. The world is changing so incredibly fast, so you need to know what's going on in the world. So lifelong learning, having an open mind, and looking into the world with a positive attitude, I think is the best approach.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. So I would like to one more time actually thank you for consideration and being a guest on my Solid Saturday podcast. It's really means a lot to me, because this is just my fifth episode and I'm expecting many more to do in future. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, actually being on a different time zones. Also, you said that let's manage it. So I was like, oh, that's really a great, like, and you already shown that leadership by example to me, actually, that you should not be bothered about the times, like, when yeah. So you just like consider your time and just let me know. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for that. Really
Well,
appreciate that.
it's my pleasure. It's been a great joy to be on your show, and good luck with all the episodes to follow, and I'll definitely follow them as well.
Yep. Thank you so much, and it's all my pleasure, and it was great meeting you actually and talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.